When the world exploded the atomic bomb, it got the attention of a lot of cosmic cultures. Not only were there crashes and so forth, there were visitations. I had seen the Integratron, and then all I needed to do was start interviewing people from back in those days to find out that what I believed to be the real ETs were people. It wasn't about religion, it was about this is a highly kept secret in black projects that make money, and as Colonel Corso told me, weapons of war. You mean you're telling me that in 1970, you guys saw space people coming off the ship? And he goes, yes.
Back in more innocent times, the 1950s and 60s, there was a different type of contact that was taking place between extraterrestrials and human beings. Beautiful, well-dressed visitors approached men who were highly intelligent but not necessarily academically oriented. In other words, open-minded. Their messages to humanity have stood the test of time, but we ignored them. So, welcome back, Paola.
Well, it's wonderful to be here, especially to talk about this situation with you.
Yeah, this is a topic I really love, and I was very grateful. I mean, you know, you and I, as everyone knows, have been through a lot of adventures together. We've done quite a few kind of joint interviews. You introduced me to Paul Hellyer, who was the former Defense Minister of Canada.
You came to Italy to see the giants.
All of it. We go back.
We go back,
But one of the things I really love and am very grateful for was you originally turning me on to the stories that happened in the 50s and 60s, because it was kind of a sweet time of contact that turned into kind of a dirty affair with everyone competing with each other and calling each other liars and, you know, stealing stuff. It became very undignified, I have to say. But back then, there was some dignity to it. So how did you first come across, we're going to talk about Howard Menger and his book, From Outer Space to You, which I love. Let's talk about that. How did you come about that?
I call it Back to the Future because I, like all people that had worked in ufology, and I am a journalist rather than a ufologist. I want to, say that. I care about history. Right. I care about the history, and I've always looked at it in the timeline of history. And no, history did not begin with 1947. It began even more because we know we've done the 1945 Trinity case. When the world exploded the atomic bomb, it got the attention of a lot of cosmic cultures. Not only were there, crashes and so forth, there were visitations. And if you look at the timeline of the 1950s and what was going on in Southern California, and California has been like a pioneer in a lot of things, then I had to go back and look at the Space Brother movement, what's called the Space Brother movement. So I had been to Giant Rock. I had seen the location. I had seen the Integratron. And then all I needed to do was start interviewing people from back in those days to find out that what I believed to be the real ETs were people. And they came here in the 1950s because we jump-started the New Age, what we call the New Age today, with Yogananda, with Maharishi, with the New Thinking. I mean, even Adamski, he would call his lectures the Temple of Tibet.
Yes,
anyway,
right,
so.
Right.
Yeah, and you agreed with that. You thought it was...
Oh, no, absolutely. And just to kind of further validate, when I had no interest in any of this, back in the mid-'80s or so, when I was talking with my own group of beings, a couple people had had experiences, and I asked them, well, are they really here? And they said, well, exactly what you said. They have an increased interest now that you have nuclear capabilities, and you'll often find them surfacing around military bases, and they're watching military activity all over the planet and have been exactly since we started playing with that. They said that will not be allowed to go out. Because we actually tried to shoot a nuclear weapon to the moon at one point.
Colonel Corso said
it was taken down. I mean, it was this
Project Horizon was testing
nuclear. The film of it is amazing. Yeah. The way that spacecraft came in and took it out. So that's not going to be allowed. We're not allowed to pollute the rest of our cosmos. So they're very That was the validation on that. The other one was Adamski stating that there are over 400,000 humanoid species throughout the universes that he knew of at the time. This is a very common, efficient vehicle.
Yes, and it's normal for me to think that, that other planets are inhabited. Why not? I mean, why not?
But not just with praying mantis types that we talk about underground in Earth, but and little ETs, but actual humans, what look to be human beings, structured very similar to us as we were once long ago here, developed this way. So were humans developed on other planets. It must just be a good vehicle to be able to express through.
Yes, and we're going to see some pictures today, of the Val Thor and Jill and Donn, and everybody says, how come they're so good looking? And I said, well, maybe you could get to the point where you can clone a human being, and I know that they have done that, and then you put a consciousness into it. And if you had a choice as a consciousness, you'd pick a beautiful body. Mm-hmm. You'd pick one that would you could almost like going shopping. Yeah. You could pick a body that you would like and take good care of it. But what interested me was, and Colonel Corso said to me once, he said, Paula, he said, the extraterrestrial biological entity, he said, is kind of a clone. He said, we've done an autopsy on him. And of course, in my book, Conversations with Colonel Corso, he gave me a drawing of the autopsy that they had done. Plus, he had said how close they were to the human body. He said, but we weren't worried at the Pentagon about those. We knew what they were. He said, we were worried about who created them. And he said they could walk through the halls of the Pentagon and never be...
John Warner IV said that's what an admiral told him. You want to know what ET is? Look around you. They're all over the Pentagon. So they're walking up and down the halls of the Pentagon. Let's go back for just one moment for people who aren't familiar with it. Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso wrote the book The Day After Roswell, which talked about the debris from the Roswell wreckage that was then back engineered by our
the Army,
military-industrial complex, Bell Labs and others. All sorts of stuff came out of it. Really interesting book to read for people interested in this topic and what happened back in '47. So that gives the context for who Corso was, as you're talking.
Yes, and I have to go with what people of that caliber tell me. He was a hero, and that he admitted that he had these artifacts, and he said to make the competitive edge of the Army, because I think that different branches compete for contracts. Yes. And so the Air Force probably had it, but they didn't have a Corso to talk about it.
Right, to talk about it. They did have stuff parceled out.
Right.
And it was, I think, 13, 14 years after the 61, I believe. The crash was 47, 61.
Well, had the crash of 45 in 1945 went to the Atomic Energy Commission.
Right.
So they had that stuff too.
And then they got the Army and whomever was their Air Force that took the debris away from Roswell, parted it out. And he did this he was with the Foreign Technology Division of the military, didn't mean Cuba.
No, it meant technology. As foreign as you can get, yes.
and they had him have everything analyzed in 1961. It was delivered in a metal filing cabinet, as
Actually,
I recall.
Regina, I've got to be honest, that changed my life, because I realized that the secret was being kept secret because of the technology, not because there would be panic all over the world. If they look like us, there's no panic all over the world.
Right.
I mean, so, it wasn't about religion. It was about, this is a highly kept secret in black projects that make money, and as Colonel Corso told me, weapons of war. So, what? Now I know why the secret's secret.
Well, not only that, weapons... They used the technology that they were exposed to for warlike purposes.
Right.
It can also be used for good.
Oh, absolutely.
It could be used to literally power the entire planet.
Exactly.
Free energy, all of it was available to us at the time, but it was all sequestered and used for darker military purposes and for profit. Some of it helped humanity. I mean, certainly you could say that fiber optics helped humanity.
Night screening devices, and all those things.
A lot of it did. Kevlar for police vests and all. So it wasn't all bad, but they even said at the time, if this is misused, you can blow this place to smithereens. So you have to be very careful with what you choose to develop there.
Well, that's one of the reasons I went back to the future, because, and I keep saying back to the future, when I went to Highbridge, New Jersey to look up the Menger case, we were in the Cold War. Russia was the enemy. And we had missiles pointed at Russia, like the Maelstrom Air Force Base in 1969, and they had missiles pointed at us. And so it was a time that's now.
Now
well,
is like
then.
They were warning of what was going to happen. We're there. That's where we are right now.
We're there
so let's
right
go
now.
back now. Let's go back to Howard Menger, and here we can see a photo of Howard Menger. And he was a very intelligent man. He actually did printing for a living, but very bright, very open-minded, curious, and a kind of refined soul. When you look at the way his book is written, the language then was more gentlemanly, more gentle, more refined in general, more credulous, where if someone meets you and says, I'm from Venus, and they certainly seem to have a strange craft and energy, people are going to say, okay, all right, tell me more, right? They're not going to get a gun out and start shooting at them.
No, it was a different world, and I think you probably saw the video where he said he heard this beautiful music in this, in this cabin, and he went down to meet the people, and the people were beautiful people, and they said, you could do this too, and he learned music by ear.
And he did compose.
And he did compose. What's nice, and I'm going to reiterate this, is this is an East Coast story.
Yeah.
We usually go to the West Coast stories, like the Adamskis and the Tassels and the Orfeo Angelucci's and all those guys were West Coast. This is East Coast. And that's why this story wasn't researched as much. Because I wondered, why didn't they go back to Highbridge, New Jersey, near New York, and research the story?
Right.
It's very unique.